Well, Melissa, were you able to read the chapters?
Did.
What did you think?
I thought it was pretty good. I think I've always been a little OCD, so I found I was actually doing some of the stuff already, just not quite to the extent, I don't think. Like, I wasn't, writing down every single thing that came in.
Yeah.
So I kind of started doing that the past week, and I found myself a lot less stressed out, a lot more organized. But I think one thing that I'm excited to get into a little bit more is, like, I think I've been doing kind of the, writing everything down, writing down who I need to follow up with and who needs to follow up with me and what my next steps are. I think where I really need help is on the prioritization piece and where to spend the time. So kind of going through that map of, if it's less than 2 minutes, do it now. If it's not, put it on the action list. I think that's what's becoming very helpful for me.
Yeah, and I think, the statement you made about already feeling good about, there's a lot of things in there that you are already doing. I think, this process is a really good fit for people that are already somewhat organized. I think what you'll find is validation in that, you're doing the right things. This just gives you a more complete framework and a way to systematically put it all together so that you can take those things you're already doing well and strengthen them, but also complement each other so that it's a comprehensive system for you. And I'll tell you, for me in the beginning, that was really one of the first ahas, was that, wow, I was already doing things pretty well, and I think I was succeeding because of that, but it just made it that much easier for me to springboard. There's some other folks that maybe aren't as organized as you are to start with, that they got to overcome that obstacle. But I think that gives you an advantage in this process that you can really ramp up faster. So you said you felt a little bit of relief. Anything specific that happened?
I don't think anything specific. Before I always had a to-do list on my calendar every day, and it wasn't, hey, this is what needs to get done on Monday or Tuesday. It was kind of a working, list of things, and I would move it from one day to the next, and it had a list of all my next steps, and then a list of all the people I was waiting to hear back from on something. So to an extent, I was already doing that. I moved that over to OneNote, so now I have a notebook that has different tabs, one for next actions, one for waiting for, one for the someday maybe, and then one for projects.
Yeah.
So I think kind of building that out a little bit further has helped. And like I said, too, I think the other thing that stood out to me was I always had a list of all the things that need done, but one thing that really resonated with me was, maybe not just put the project down there, but you put what's the next specific action that you need to do to progress in that. So I've started doing that instead of just listing big things that need tackled, but what are the very specific actions?
Yeah, and that's a good idea. And projects are one of those things he's going to touch on a lot in the coming chapters. But really, the two things to think about, what is the desired outcome when you're talking about a project, and look at some things that you and I have worked on together. What are we really trying to accomplish? And then, like you said, what is the next thing you can do to move it forward? And I have a project list that I review every week, and in some of the next meetings, I'll showcase the tools that I use. But what I do is I have a list of everything that I'm working on, all of the bigger projects, and I have that desired outcome listed, and then I start working whatever the next actions are. And I just reviewed it this morning in my weekly review, and I touch each one of my projects at least once a week with that process and think about what could I do to move this forward. So it really, again, keeps you thinking strategically. And to the comment you made earlier, that does help me prioritize to say, okay, here's something either that I've got to do this week because I've got a meeting coming up, or there's a management expectation about something I need to deliver, or whatever it may be. It helps you establish that priority in the week ahead. So that's really good. I wanted to share with you real quick. Are you seeing my screen?
I am. Yep.
Okay. The planner page, I don't know if you've had a chance to go there yet, but in the week 2 item here, the meeting bucket, I've listed out the points that I wanted to discuss, and we'll hit on most of these in our discussion. But also there's a chapter summary for chapter 1 and 2 that gives you a quick, about a paragraph each on what we covered. So it's a good way to go back if you want to not necessarily reread the entire chapter, but just revisit. Okay, what did I look at in the first couple weeks or first couple chapters? You'd be able to do that. And then this simple workflow map. This is a real good one, I think. Whoops, I'll just click right on it. to give you that overview. And one of the things he talks about in chapter 2 is the 5 stages of mastering your workflow: collection, processing, organizing, review, and do. And this covers that process and organize, to look at how do you manage your stuff, the things that are incoming, all the way through to taking action or putting them in one of the other the buckets of incubation. So he's going to get into these in depth in the next part of the book. I think it starts in chapter 4. But again, these tools are there for you, and I would encourage everybody to print this out and have a copy handy as you're doing things. It's a good reminder. I always keep one on my desk for that purpose. But for the folks in the room there downstairs, any thoughts on the first 2 chapters? Any questions or any relief felt in the beginning?
Based on those 2 chapters, what I thought was interesting was that, especially the task where he asks you to go through one thing that you're doing, you're on your to-do list, and just make it action-based rather than more of a simple to-do. And I did that and actually found it very helpful.
Yeah, I think that's an important exercise to go through. That, again, there is one of the most valuable parts of GTD for me, which he's alluded to but hasn't really explained yet, is the weekly review. That's where you have a chance to kind of sit down and think about and go through that question, what's in your head and what is it you need to do on a weekly basis. And there's a process for it, and I have tools that I use. But again, I think if you read the first 2 chapters, you saw that there's a lot of flexibility in this for you to use really any system that works for you. So I would expect that most of us are going to have some things in common from a structure standpoint, but how we actually do it is going to probably be unique to everybody. So you have the freedom and flexibility to do what fits you best. But collecting those things, getting things out of your head and into a trusted system. If there's anything to take away from the first chapter, that's really what I would stress for you, is not counting on your mind. I mean, I think we all know we've forgotten things at times. We've had hiccups in our work because something fell off. We had an example this morning. We had a failure in our meeting start. But in general, your brain does a really good job at a few things. Keeping track of a lot of stuff is honestly not one of them. That's one of David Allen's points, is that you should leave your brain power for thinking and decisions and, again, acting, rather than trying to remember all that stuff. So, Melinda, I know we had talked a few weeks prior to this book club starting. I just wanted to check in with you. How are things going for you so far?
I'm still having trouble staying on track. Things have been kind of crazy, in what's going on in corporate right now. I'm, kind of have an idea, but so I start out real good in the morning, but by the afternoon, I'm just like, I'm a mess. So
Okay.
I'm still working on trying to stay consistent.
And are you feeling like the process is overwhelming, or you just have a lot of things coming at you?
No, I think right now the process is not overwhelming, because all I'm basically doing is, with the emails, and when they come in, I put them in my buckets. I set up my buckets. It's when I get off track. I come in the morning, everything's good, everything's quiet, and then about 9 or 10 o'clock, things kind of start getting crazy, depending on what's going on, who's here, and that sort of stuff. So then I start I feel like I'm losing control. You know what I'm saying?
I got you. And I think there are some the different types of work that you'll engage in, your planned activities, things that you've structured, and then there are things that just kind of come up. And for me, and this is something for you to look forward to, you'll get to a point where you're so good at that planned activity that it leaves space for those surprises. And part of the reason why you get stressed by surprises is that it's distracting you from the other things that you already know you should be doing. So if you have a better handle on that, when the surprises come up, you can be more present. You can pay more attention to them, and they won't be disruptions anymore. They're actually being, something you'll invite, that someone walks into your door, or you get, a phone call that, hey, this is good. It's some variety. So we'll get you there. And I wanted to just offer, if you have trouble, you get stuck on something, you're not sure how to handle, and this goes for everybody, please give me a call or come tap me on the shoulder. I'll share what I've learned, and maybe I can help you get through that stumbling block. That's really the point of this. We could all read the book on our own, but really it's the exchange of information between the group that really I think is where the value is going to come in on this. I just wanted to point out a couple more things before we close. In the planner page, there are a couple items here. The maximizing your productivity with Outlook. There's some links in here that include 3 different YouTube videos, and then there's also a guide I added there with a bunch of Outlook shortcuts. If you're going to use Outlook as one of your tools, I'd highly recommend learning the shortcuts, because the easier the process is for you to actually manage, the more likely it is you'll use it. You don't have to use Outlook, but if you're going to, that's a good way, or some good tips in there. And then the GTD podcasts, I honestly had never listened to any of those until we started doing this round with the book club, and I got through 3 this week, and they were really good. And they were the first few. I started with number 1 and then started going up the chain. They really are more about examples from professionals of how they're using GTD and how it's affected them. So they're short, they're to the point. It's good for your car ride home, or if you're someplace like maybe sitting in an airport, it's a good way to burn your time, but also use it productively. So I'll recommend those. But unless there's anything else, we'll go ahead and close the meeting for this week. Again, I apologize for the stumble at the beginning, but hopefully we'll get on track here going forward. All right, well, thanks everybody.
Thanks,